And evening, everybody. It's a beautiful Monday evening, and I want to pay respects to the traditional owners whose countries we're on, and if you want to put it in the chat on whose country you're actually living or working on or connected to, by all means. We'd like to have a yarn through the chat process. And I also want to give recognition to the traditional owners whose land I'm on, which is the Turrbal and Yagara, based in Meanjin, I should say, in Brisbane. My name is Ross Williams. I'm the one of the traditional owners for the Bindal people in the Burdekin to Townsville area. On my father's side, and on my mother's side, I'm the Torres Strait and the islands of Mer and Ereb and the Eastern Islands. So very proud of both cultures, and really, really excited about having this young gentleman here to have a bit of a yarn about fire and fire country, Victor Steffensen. And I really want to thank Victor for his time, his knowledge and experience for tonight. It should be noted that Victor is in between Sydney and Newcastle on the way to another fire practitioner's review in Newcastle. He can explain it himself. But really, really excited about having Victor on because I've known Victor for many, many years, and I also read his book, Fire Country, many, many times. The reason why I like the actual book itself, it tells the story and the narrative, and that narrative comes through, particularly for myself and others who have experiences in growing up and or spending time with the Malfolds. And I can hear their voices through the book and through the language and through them talking to Victor. I love the book because it comes alive every time I read it. And I think, wow, that old fellow, yeah, you're talking there, because I know the voices and I know the places. And that's the charming part for me about fire country. But it's more than that. And it's really what I want to examine with Victor about fire and what the difference between a friendly fire and a wildfire, and his whole journey from fire country and learnings through that process. And for Victor, I think, and for me, it's really about deep learning about how fire is a friend if you respect and treat it as a friend. And we've got a deep listening about country, looking after country, what birds, plants and animals. So with no more to do right now, I'm really keen to introduce Victor Steffensen. And Victor will just be having a quick yarn to us. And then periodically, I'm just going to chime in and ask him a few questions because I can't help myself. But if you want to ask questions, just put it in the chat room and Michelle will pop in and give us some. And I see there's some really interesting places and locations that people are from. Thanks, Victor. I better stop drinking that coffee or tea this time of night. Over to you, my brother.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ross, and really wonderful to be talking with you tonight as I travel in between places and off to visit the Warramai and other clans around Newcastle and region there. And yeah, and also, talking with you for the first time on a Zoom, and you hosting, that's also really great, because I remember going right back when I was in school, in high school. You came as a ranger when you're a lot younger man, and you presented artifacts and stone tools and talked about Aboriginal culture and country, and I was really inspired. I was only in grade 10 or 11 or something like that, and I said, "Who's this fella here dressed in a ranger uniform?" I said, "That's what I want to do when I leave school." And so here I am now talking to you and you're hosting, and even read a book that I wrote, and that's just really amazing. And I would never have ever dreamed or thought that right back then, when I was only like 15 or 16 years of age, and listening to you yourself. I'm Takalak, and I'm from up in the Gulf country of far north Queensland. And I just came from there actually yesterday. I was just there, all the way up there in Far North Queensland, the Gulf, and out bush celebrating our 10th native title, 10 years of native title anniversary. Yeah, so it was a really special weekend, and I'm just really recharged from that, and meeting all the families and reconnecting again. So it's just been fantastic. So I'm on a bit of a buzz as I travel to Newcastle, and then a further buzz tomorrow when I look at 40 trainees that are going to do a burn for the first time on their own, and I'll be watching them, and they're all excited about tomorrow, because like a graduation sort of day of becoming fire practitioners, and they're the very first ones to go through this sort of process, and that process is not a Western process. It's not a TAFE process. Of course, they've done this certificate for through TAFE and stuff like that, through that general course that they do. But on top of that, we've been doing, in traditional fire management, Indigenous fire management, and our own little course. And I decided to do that in the sense of, having that stand alone, and so not put it through any TAFE institutions or Western institutions, and actually, and let it stand alone. And ever since working with them old people, and over all the years advocating the fire, and also and how the nation turned to Aboriginal knowledge and Aboriginal people when those devastating fires happened in 2020, I think our knowledge is acknowledged now, and we need to be recognised, and that knowledge needs to be recognised to stand alone and be taught in a way where Indigenous people lead and teach that knowledge, and how we then continue to progress that in a way that we keep training the trainers and keep mentoring community with communities and helping each other to is really solid across our nations again, and into mainstream solutions of today. So really exciting times for me at the moment, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow to see all those mob there. But that's going right back when I was only in school, like I mentioned before. And then when I left school, I ended up with them old people because I wanted to learn more, and that all came from the stolen generation of not being able to learn when you're a lot younger and when you're a kid, and that's putting that puzzle back together, and putting those pieces back is what I started to do at a very young age, from the age of 13, when I got that real interest. And so it's a timely time to really acknowledge my mentors. My main two mentors were Kukutaipan elders, and these beautiful two old men. But there's many other mentors and people who inspired me as well, just like Ross did in the very beginning at school, and many others that are past as well, that I did ranger programs with all over the Cape. So I do a big shout out to so many wonderful and special people that are no longer with us now, that have inspired me over the years, and that's what's led to this such an important thing, because we can't allow any more knowledge to go to the graves, and we can't allow any more knowledge to diminish. We can't allow our land to diminish as well, as alongside our cultures, and we really need to start turning the scale the other way, and getting that cup half empty and start to fill up that that stuff. And that's what's inspired all of this, knowing that my own families on my mother's side that were displaced, and when I met them old people, I saw walking encyclopedias, and that was really rare, at that time, because a lot of that knowledge had been passed and gone, and a lot of those elders have been gone, and so when I saw them old people and lived with them for a good 27 years, between 50 and 27 years between both elders, and there was such an important time in life for me to realize that, hey, like a lot of the young ones weren't picking up that knowledge, and we were in a situation where that knowledge was leaving, and the world wasn't doing too much about it, in the sense of the mainstream and governments, and a lot of the communities are also struggling as well with the social problems and the challenges, and just getting recognized and heard, and getting the resources to be able to record or get that knowledge strong again was, I saw that it wasn't really happening back then. And so, we started to record knowledge ourselves, just between ourselves, with no funding or anything. And we were just working on CDP, which is a community development program where we just work for the dole sort of thing. And I worked for the dole, doing that work with the Maori people for a good 10 to 15 years on that little gammon salary, like $220 a week for working for the week. And that was good, you know. And so the elders there, that, you know, them two old fellas, they were really, really keen to get their knowledge back on country. And when the three of us got together, then it started a really amazing partnership and love to start putting our knowledge back on country and reviving that knowledge. And that's why Fire Country came around many years later. I started to write that book after losing them old people, because I realized that, you know, it's time to write it down. And I had no publishers. I had no idea how to write a book or anything. All I knew is how to tell a story. And so I started to write that information down. And the main reason behind writing that book, Fire Country, was mainly for recognizing them old people, and also for protecting that knowledge, so people and they knew how that knowledge has progressed as well, and how that's lived through me since the old fellas have departed, and kept that work going and that legacy alive that they left us. And you know, we continue to follow those stories and continue to follow that pathway, and it's just amazing where things have gone, and it's just incredible. And I'm currently now writing a part 2 to Fire Country, and there's a lot more to say, and I didn't say enough through there. I didn't get to tell the whole story. But when those fires went off in 2020, I got a phone call, and it was the publishers, and I didn't know who they were, and it was Hardy Grant, and they said, "Oh, g'day, and we're publishers." And I was like, "Oh, hello. We think you should write a book on fire, be given to the devastating fires that are happening at the moment." And I said, "Oh yeah, well, I'm actually writing at the moment, and I've been writing, you know, the last 3 years on and off, because couldn't write full time because so much work going on." And so from there, I told them I was writing, and I sent in what I had, and they were like, "Oh, we want to publish this straight away because the world needs to start understanding, and the world needs to hear this stuff since those wildfires." And I was sort of like neglect to do that, you know. I didn't really want to do that because it was a time when those fires just went off, and I didn't want to really publish at that time, thinking, "Oh, I don't want people to think I'm taking advantage of that situation and publishing a book during a fire." And so I said to them, "Nah, I didn't want to do it, you know." And I said, and I'm not finished anyway. I want to finish my story, you know, and there's so much more to write. I'm only halfway through, or if not even that, you know. And they said, "Oh," they convinced me, "we really got to get it out there, and it's really crucial." And so I finally agreed, and then the book was published, and knowing in my heart that, you know, that I had to write another one to finish off the story that I started. And yeah, but that's when Fire Country came out, and, you know, and getting that to the communities and giving country a voice as well. That was another really important part of that. And knowing that, you know, people don't know, a lot of people don't know this stuff, you know. It's really, you know, most of the nation, you know, if it's not certain Aboriginal communities and people that still have a lot of knowledge, is, you know, they've lost that. They don't understand any concept of this, and fire is just the start, you know. And that's why in Fire Country I wrote a lot about you know, the different connections with other knowledge fields, and how that fitted into a lot of philosophies, and how it was applicable to the modern world. And, you know, and writing that further into the, you know, with the second book. And I'm really excited because this is going to take it to a whole nother level of finishing the story, because, you know, every day the story is still continuing, and we're still living that story, and there's so many more people getting involved, and so much more things are happening. And you know, and I also grow as well with the knowledge, and continue to learn more, as you never stop learning and having more experiences, not just in Australia, but helping other communities in Canada as well. There's projects over there, I'm working with them, and which is really important in terms of understanding how we, you know, share knowledge and adopt principles on a global scale. And I think if there was a way where community can mentor community, what we've done in Australia on a global scale, then I think that would be a really important way as well to strengthen our case here and get more support for that, and get a lot more eyes looking in from out overseas to ensure our governments are doing the right thing as well, and getting more support from as much as we can from all over. And that's another reason for writing the book, was to get that support and all those and get that awareness, and to and hopefully get help to do this work, because the government wasn't helping us, and they're still not really helping us. We have a long way to go yet in sense of the work to date, and working with a lot of the communities now today. We have come a long way, and we've come far enough to now have plenty of a lot of good practitioners that are now trained and are now doing workshops without me, and they're training people now, and we're all connected with each other and supporting each other, and that's what we're doing through Fire Sticks Alliance, which is a community non-for-profit organization that was developed and by all the communities that were involved at the time and continue to be involved. And so that's what it's all about. We got to do it ourselves, and we got to work together. We got to support each other, and we got to get through all the all the damage in the past socially, and even the damage that native title has done to our own communities, and how we got to get away from that Western mindset of egos and greed, and how we need to start supporting each other, because the governments aren't going to be able to do this. It's only going to be the people that can do this. And that's why it's so important writing Fire Country and inspiring a lot of our countrymen, and and now today going to this next community, there's 40 of them there that are so excited that are going to do the burn on their own. And it's just really, really great to see, because it's going to take that Indigenous mindset to solve the problems in Indigenous country. And when we look at what Einstein said, problems can't be solved by the mindsets that created those problems, by the same mindsets that created that. We need different mindsets to solve the problems that, and so we need to be able to get Aboriginal knowledge active and in itself, and that's what we've done, and that's what's helped get to where we are at the moment, and all the communities, whether we're working together or not, it's created a lot of opportunities for everybody, and it's also excited a lot of non-Indigenous organizations and people in a way that they're supporting communities more now. And but like I said, we've still got a long way to go. But since doing that book and doing the work, more importantly, around the country, and inspiring a lot of those communities through those old people, it's just really beautiful to know that that's going to continue. And if we can do that with fire, like show how we can create a movement, and we can show how we can have traditional knowledge valued and respected across all the mainstream sectors, then I'm sure we can do it with other fields of knowledge around our knowledge system that's going to benefit us socially and environmentally, and more importantly, protect our culture for the future generations, and ensure that one of the oldest cultures in the world continues to thrive. And because it's that knowledge that comes from the oldest cultures in the world that have that most intelligent thing of mankind of all, and that thing is simply being able to live on this planet for 40,000 years plus without destroying it. That's an intelligence that people seem to miss. And within that, and that statement around that intelligence is so much complexity and so much information and layers of knowledge, and connection with every knowledge field and with each other, and it's such an important thing to revive that for our future generations. So really proud that now that since doing this work, and having the Fire Sticks Alliance develop, only in the last couple of years, it's started to employ people. Before that, it was just a network of communities just talking with each other, and meeting up every now and again at the National Indigenous Fire Workshop and other little workshops, and that was all it was for a while. And then finally it got a little bit of funding, and it's got a core, and it's got really wonderful Indigenous people and also non-Indigenous people working in an organization that is supporting all the communities and the demand from communities to get support for this work. And I'm really proud that that's happening many all over Queensland, from right up the top and all the way down to southern Queensland and all over New South Wales as well, and down in Victoria. I just came from Tasmania, and they've been activated. And next week I'm off to South Australia, and all of those communities are just getting started there now, and it's just exploding over there, and it's just really exciting, And it's just really about getting that right process in place where the communities pull together and that we work together, and because we're stronger together. But more importantly, if we're going to restructure that shared responsibility across the nation, then we need to be supporting each other to join the dots and refill that cup of knowledge that is based on understanding the land and reading the country and those trees and all those simple shared knowledge things that we share within similar trees and landscapes and soils, and even within our knowledge as well, and cultures, and across different nations. And so that's so important, because that's what was how sustainability was created. It was through kinship, and that kinship is so important. And when we have a damaged kinship, then we have a fractured knowledge base. When we have a healthy kinship, then we see, and that's what kinship really means when we look at how important kinship is for, looking after country and having a healthy community. It's really, that's what it's about. That kinship is that's the key to sustainability, because if we got a healthy kinship, then we have a shared responsibility right across the country, and keeping landscapes healthy. And in the old times, keeping your land healthy and keeping it beautiful, and and all that land management and law around cultural management of land was really crucial to keeping healthy landscapes, because every elder is proud of their land, and proud that some have barramundi, another mob might have all the black brim, another mob might have bunya nuts, another mob have black bean, and everyone has a unique feature about their land, and that is really when ceremony and other clans would come and visit, that they would be so proud to share that resource with them, and everyone would be excited to go over there and say, oh, we're going to get a feed of barramundi from these mob, or whatever it may be. And that was the trade as well, and trading, and also was an important for our marriage as well, to into marriage and all that stuff, to have a healthy country. And so that that exchange and through marriage and trade and ceremony and all those things was very strong and healthy, and there was plenty to share with each other, not just within your own clan group. And that's why that shared responsibility and that knowledge base right across is so important, and why it's so important for our communities to be mentoring each other and training each other and supporting it, that community mentorship model. And that really comes from that rebuilding that kinship system again. And that's just been amazing, that community mentorship, because it's healing communities that have been fractured from those native title problems, and fractured from being disconnected from landscapes, and fractured from the stolen generation, disconnected from each other. And that's what it's all about. It's really about, we can't, if you're doing fairs, not just burning the land. If you're going to practice Aboriginal fire management, then it needs to show all the benefits that feed into supporting the culture as a whole. So it needs to feed into education, and needs to inspire communities and help mob socially. It needs to feed into social enterprise things like bush foods, and how people benefit from healthy landscapes, and feed into health programs. And if it's just fire on its own, and we're just doing fire, and it doesn't connect to any other aspect of our knowledge and culture and benefits that, then it's a Western model. And that's what it is at the moment. It's a Western, it's got control of all this country. They dictate and dominate the land management and the way that they've now created fire that used to be so spiritual and so amazing and special for thousands of years in this country has all resulted to fear and not understanding fire and seen as an enemy, and using words like hazard reduction and you know, mitigation, and horrible words that see it as a hazard, you know, and the benefits, there's no benefit from that. There's zero investment in looking after the land. There's zero investment in educating the next generations. There's only deficit and debt created from their models of massive wildfires and fighting fires and the loss of life and property and the loss of our animals and everything. You see billions of dollars go down the drain. So if we allow them to continue on, then that's all it's ever going to be. And we haven't got time for them to get it and to catch up, because how can they catch up in, you know, 40,000 years of knowledge in 230 years or so? And so that's why it's so important that we really push this forward. And why I wrote Fire Country is to, you know, in one man's lifetime, at least try and get as many people as possible to do what them old people did for me. And that is to learn and understand that right process, and in a way that activates us, and in a way that we throw our lives at that, and how we can live happy and healthier lives, and you know, and feel great looking after our country and practicing culture again, and also changing the, you know, the way that this nation is thinking, because it's totally ludicrous. And so it's a big challenge, you know. I mean, tomorrow when I'm doing this thing tomorrow, I'll be doing a Zoom to the Parliament House. They asked us to do a little presentation. They said, "Oh, we're interested in what you're doing," and you know, but I've been to Parliament House 3 or 4 times already, knocking on the door, sitting at the desk, talking about this stuff. You know, it's done nothing for us. Been to the Royal Commission since those fires and sat in their courtrooms, and you know, there's been no outcome, and there's been hardly anything done at all. So, you know, we just got to persist, and we got to keep going and kicking goals, and the only way we're going to do that is be practical. And so that's you know, why, you know, I'm running around like I am now, but hopefully doing a lot less of that as practitioners or training up and running in their own regions. And you know, the way that we employ people through this structure, and the way that Fire Sticks is structured, and everything is based on Indigenous governance, you know. And that's why, like, when we employ people, they're employed from their own country, and they're employed to within those regions of their own country, not having people fly in or people employed from somewhere else. And that's a real important part of getting that knowledge structure back again, because if we're training people from leave that country, they're going to be there forever, and therefore that knowledge won't leave, and it'll then get back to the process of passing more of that knowledge down to the next generations, which was a really important practice, you know, in Indigenous culture, Aboriginal cultures, is to pass that knowledge down to ensure that those younger ones get that right pathway and continue to manage the land that right way that has always been, keeping it plentiful and healthy. So yeah, those Indigenous structures are really important, and that's why traditional knowledge, and it's not just about fire, but the Indigenous knowledge and that intelligence, you know, like I said before, that 40,000 years of living on country without damaging it, well, there's a whole governance around that feeds into the law of our soils, law of our trees, the law within our kinship within each other, the laws around animals and hunting laws, and the fire laws and the water laws. And there's so much information and laws that and even our social governance in the way that we operate socially, and that's also a part of the landscape. And when we see today in our jobs, and we're creating jobs where people come from their own country, and also creating jobs where people are being paid to practice their own culture, that is a real important service to the nation. And the happiness and the motivation and that comes with that. And you see that in all the people when they're doing the work. They just can't wait to get out there and manage the land, when they start to see it through fresh eyes, and where they see how that rebuilds their knowledge and their own culture and their connection to the land. It's incredible. And so a lot of the rangers, they're not rangers, a lot of the fire practitioners around the country, young people that are doing this work, they're just saying to me, Vic, this is my dream job. This is the dream. This is the job that I always wanted, and, and that tells us we're creating the right employment structures and the right that are really important jobs. And it's all about investment in a way that's not based on dollars, but investment that's based on, richer culture, richer knowledge, and a positive future, and and something exciting, and rather than what we're hearing around climate change and mass extinction and all these problems that we're getting within our environment, especially through that state of environment report. It's always the bad end of the stick that they always hit us with, and feeding that fear factor. And so when we look at Indigenous knowledge, and when we look at the journey that we're all on, it's really exciting, and that's how it should be. An exciting journey for all of us, So yeah, we keep on going, and building, and because it's not about us, because when we look at healing this country, and we look at reviving what has been damaged and lost over the years, healing landscape is going to take a long time. It's going to take us hundreds of years to get rivers clean again, or areas where there's a 500-year-old trees and old growth forests back, and to the level where our young people are so knowledgeable, they're walking encyclopedias again, just like the old people were before. And that's going to take a lot of generations to get to that point. And that's really important for everyone to understand. That makes us realize that it's not about us who are us now, us alive today. It's not about us. It's about those future generations. And that's exactly how the old people think too. It's always been about those next generations, And that's why that writing the book and getting the information out there and activating all the communities is so important, because it needs to carry on. We need to pass that baton on to the next generations, and that baton needs to be the same baton, not a different one. Otherwise we lose track again, and that's been the success of sustainability. It's passing that same baton down to the next generation, same baton down. And people lived for 40,000 years with their views on land and lifestyles and their connection with the land. They made sure they kept it that way, because that was the pathway of having no problems with environmentally and socially, even though we all had problems, but I mean, in a way that we can coexist and effectively, and so yeah, really, really important stuff. And and I hope that over the next book and the next bit of work that we're doing, that we can take that even deeper for everybody, to understand it even more, and see a greater value in this, and understand how it benefits everything, even in the modern world, because everything in this modern world today, it doesn't matter what they do, natural law and the knowledge, traditional knowledge, will always be applicable and will always be relevant, no matter what happens. And because natural law never changes, and the identity of the country and the identity of the land and planet and Mother Earth is will never change. It's always still going to be there. And that's really what it's about. Really, it's about identity, because that identity is crucial. When we look at the problems within our landscapes, whether it's the farming doing the wrong thing, or whether it's wildfires, or whether it's they're doing chain pulling and land clearing all the land, or they dirty all the water up, or no matter what the range of practices or what they're doing across this country, whether it's national park managing the way they manage with Western management, it never changes the fact that natural law will always be important to healing and fixing the landscapes and looking after country, and will always be applicable. So yeah, so it's yeah, just so important, you know. And that's why you know, showing that deeper sense. And when we look at the world today and how they see Indigenous culture and knowledge, it's such a shallow view. They don't see it at all. And simple things like passing knowledge on to the next generations. You know, you think about that, you know, how important that is and where that feeds into kinship and those pathways and long-term targets of being sustainable, you know, for hundreds or thousands a year more, you know. You know, that's such an important thing, you know, and that involves our children too. And that's why I wrote, you know, the children's book, and doing another children's book at the moment, and published. That'll come out hopefully end of this year or maybe early next year. And that's about the trees. And you know, we really got to get this happening for the kids. And but to do that, we need to activate the older ones and train them up and get them to become mentors and to set examples for our young ones, and so that we can get back on track with that right governance and process that our people have had for so long, you know. Very valuable, and that's what's needed in this world today, you know. And it's inevitable. Otherwise, it's, you know, as you can see, it's a diminishing process at the moment, you know. And yeah, and so turning that around is what we have to do as Indigenous people on a global scale, and you know, and that includes non-Indigenous people to be a part of that process. Yeah.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
So,
just
yeah.
brilliant. Yeah. I mean, sitting here listening to you, I've learned so much. I continue to listen to you. Yeah, and you are a good storyteller. I mean, I remember that part in the book where the old fellow, you know, he was fearful of light and wanted to, you know, cultural burn. And I remember even before that, he was, I spoke to him about that because they shared a lot of knowledge on country. And they took me bush and showed me how to track and how to find plants and water and just the knowledge base. But that old fellow talked about that fire, but he was frightened to light it up. But then I read in your book for the first time, he lit country, you know, through a cultural lens. And that was extremely powerful from that conversation I had with him many years before to your experience. I mean, that was absolutely beautiful. And knowing that, well, you've been doing this for about 27 years now or so. Is that right?
Oh, all up now. I've been doing this for now for over 30 years now.
Wow.
Almost 30 years now, yeah.
Mate, you're making me feel old. I mean,
since we started. That's since me and old fella started, yeah. Yeah.
And
since we started the journey together, you know. 31 years ago.
31 years, my goodness. Man, you're really pushing me.
Yeah. I better stop, eh?
Yeah, but you talked about your journey about and the journey of fire and the holistic approach. And that fire is a lot more than just flames and practical solutions. It has an economic and a social and a cultural benefit and an improvement. Did you find that was the same in Canada with some of the work that you were doing there?
For the fire, like
fire.
linking into different areas, or
well, just fire generally in Canada. What were you doing over that way in terms of fire?
Up in Laura area or that region? Or
no, in Canada. Just in Canada, you were talking about.
Oh, Canada. Oh, sorry. Yeah, well, in Canada, it was the same. It was like, again, it was like communities there that they just suffered a big, massive wildfire there, and it nearly destroyed their community, you know. And even worse for them mob over there, them communities, you know, it's just like the same. And you go over there, it's the same. Our community, you drive in, you know, you got all the mob, all the houses, and you got all the, you know, dog running around there, everything. You know, it's the same way as here. But poor buggers there, you know, like they don't get as much support. They don't even have much mobile coverage in the community. They don't have any support from the government. You know, those communities are working with in terms of health and equipment and support. And even when those fires went off, the authorities didn't even evacuate them. They just left them there. And they evacuated all the surrounding, you know, all the non-Indigenous people in their township, but except left the settlement, just left them all in there. And this was a fire that was devastating, you know. It was destroying everything in its path, you know, and just leave but a desert behind it that was once all pine forests and really rich, thick pine forests. And you know, and they stayed and they fought with their little garden hoses. And they all got ready there, the mob, to try and fight that fire. And as they went over the hill and ready to swallow their community, it just turned around and went the other way. As soon as it got to the graves of the elders, it just turned around and went the other way. And when you look at the from the air, the little green patch where the community is, and everywhere else is just black and devastated. And even the service station next door, down the road, it blew up. And you know, a lot of houses were lost, and except for their little community, and they didn't get evacuated or anything. You know, poor buggers. And so when I saw that, and when I went there and saw how the land was, and I saw how much help, you know, they needed as well, and doing that. When I went to Canada, it was like starting all over again, because I had to learn all the trees. I didn't know anything about that. It was like alien to me, you know. I didn't understand the trees and anything. So the first step for me was to learn all the trees. And so I said to them, you know, like, you know, you got to teach me the trees. So I need to learn them. So we went walking through the bush, and they started to teach me all the trees and teach me the values, not just the trees itself, but also the ecosystem it's in, and soil type. And I told them, well, what do you do here? What values? Oh, we come here for berries, or we come here to hunt deer, or, you know, depending, you know, same like for our different ecosystems and the different values they have. And once I got a handle of the trees and understanding, and I could see and read the soil types that were similar to ours, I was able to then say, oh, well, this is like our bloodwood country. This is bloodwood tree. And that was their popular tree. And I was able to find the ironbark tree, which was their fir tree. And when I saw that, I even saw the river red gum over there, which was their spruce tree. I found ecosystems there that were no fire country, that didn't belong to fire, and other ones that did. And when I looked at the grasses, they were even similar, and the soils were the same. And I said to them, I said, look, this place, this little ecosystem here will burn if we put a match in it, and it'll go out. It'll only burn this in these trees, but it'll go out over there. And they said, nah, that's impossible. You know, it's like 3 degrees and snow on the mountains, you know. And I said, but I'm pretty sure. I said, give me a lighter. And they gave me a lighter, and I lit that grass up, and just burned beautifully, exactly followed those popular trees, and went out at the next tree, at the next ecosystem. And they all just looked, and jaws hit the ground and went, what? And that was it. That was just, from there, they were just so excited, and instantly they got like support from the Gathering of Society, which is an Indigenous unit of the Vancouver and over there in university over there in the BC. And they got that support immediately, and I'm heading back over there next year in April, since the COVID, and getting back into doing that work there. But it was like starting all over again. I had to start all over again, but, you know, obviously fast tracked with the knowledge I didn't know from home here. And even within the social side of it, even the society side, you know, like the governments, they were really ignorant. People, the general public, didn't know nothing about or even heard of Aboriginal fire management, and it was just starting all over again, you know. And it's the same problems they had with the government, same problems right across the board. But the only difference with them fellas is that they had their own governance within their Aboriginal lands, so the government couldn't interfere with their you know, interfere with their land management. So when I landed in BC, the authorities knew I was coming, the rangers, the white fella ones, and they all found out I was coming, and there was a few nervous emails being thrown around, and who's this Australian guy coming over here and burning over, bringing fire. So the minute I hit the ground, they put a fire ban up right across the state. And they said, well, we're going to ban fire, no fire. And so that was the day I landed. And they must have did that thinking, oh, we'll ban the fire. So if it goes out of the Aboriginal Reserve and into our area, then we can, we can do something about it, or, be more, throw more spanners in the works against the people. So I went to the chief of that tribe. And I said to them, oh, like they put a fire ban on, because them rangers over there, they carry guns, And I was like, hey,
Yeah.
they got a fire ban on here. What am I going to do? I was sort of nervous, And then the chief said, this is our land. And they kind of interfere with us. So you go and burn and you don't worry. And so we started to do the burns and doing the burning and doing our work. And you see that car go past the rangers, with a proper like a police car, go past, and like I say, they got guns and do, and they're just like the cops, and watching us, seeing the fire, and then finally some of them even stopped and jumped out of the car. And once I started explaining what we're doing, they were just fascinated and really interested, and then started taking photos and started and straight away, oh, we're going to go back and tell our boss and tell them that we should be doing this. And just like here, it just starts to spread like the good fire spreads, and since then, just only a couple of months ago, that community there, which is Unisatin, which translates to stone community, and also the honey community, they won an award. They won the National Land Care Award in Canada. It was like a National Land Care Award, and they won an award there, and just recently, and they're in the paper and across the news for their fire project there. And
I saw that.
I got mentioned in there. And they sent me photographs of them on country and to my phone and said, oh, when are you coming back over? And I was like, oh, but that's what's so important, and about that is that global sharing of knowledge, and if us here can influence other countries from our Indigenous knowledge, that's more more credibility, and it allows people here to take us more seriously, because people don't listen to their own people in their own backyard, and it's just human nature. They seem to listen to someone from another country. I mean, when we had those big fires in 2020 and then 19 and that down there, they had a guy from America come over and be on TV talk about it. I don't know if you guys would have remembered that or saw that, but there was a fire guy from America talking about it, and like professional, and everyone's like they're all listening to him.
That's how they go,
isn't
like, it?
Gosh, that's how they go. But even for our own mob, they won't listen to. Some mob won't listen to our mob in our own communities. It took me ages for some mob up north to take me seriously too, because they've known me for a long time, and think, oh, what are you doing there? What are you doing there? And it's not until they start seeing all the work and seeing what's actually happening, and they go, hey, look at it, what he's actually doing stuff there, and oh yeah, that knowledge is, look what's happening. And now, like there's 7 communities activated in the wet tropics this year. We got a coordinator and there. I'm training Random Mob and all my hometown. I'm putting our first burns on Takalaka next year, and training all through the Gulf is starting up as well, and and the Cape, and we've got all the Burdekin, and I'm starting to activate, and Palm Island got in touch today, and they want to get going, and it goes all the way down through even Mackay and right through to Brisbane and then onwards. Now I'm here in Newcastle, New South Wales, and it's just fantastic, and the more we can activate it and get this program going here, the better. But but we're not. But we got to get our own backyard cleaned up, and and it's not really about going overseas, and because people think, oh, going overseas, I want to work overseas for your own experience, and it's just I'm more focused on our own backyard and ensuring that we get our right models here, but at the same time, getting those opportunities to to start working on that important bigger picture where how that knowledge can be demonstrated in different landscapes, and how that can really speed up, the understanding on, for our own country, also from that global perspective. So I'm hoping to do more work in different countries, and then, and hopefully there'll be some exchanges as well with the communities even there. Going to work with them, and hopefully I'll be able to connect communities on a global scale.
Well, you're connecting
well,
at the moment. Yeah, I mean, that's the
yeah.
We've got 5 minutes, and Michelle, I think we've got
right.
questions.
Oh, it goes quick, eh?
Yeah, it does, brother. And we can yarn a lot more. But Michelle, have you got a couple of questions there?
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions. One has come in, and it's a nice introduction, sort of outline question, I think. Victor, could you please explain the difference between Indigenous cultural burning and non-Indigenous hazard reduction burning?
Well, yeah, I think I explained a little bit about that when I talked about the investment side of things, and how there's about fear, and we're about, ours is about, healthier landscapes, and, and how we apply responsibility to landscapes and look after country, and how we're a part of that landscape. And when you look at this Indigenous fire management, it's evolving with nature. It's people in the environment. When you look at Western fire, it's people outside of the environment looking in, and they don't know what they're doing. They don't understand all this, the soils, all that science around the different heat temperatures. They don't understand the plants and the flammability of plants. They don't understand the identity of the landscape in terms of all those ecosystems and what they should look like, what plants should be in there. And that's why our bush medicine and knowledge and, food knowledge is so important, because that bush type of knowledge and on our plants and animals, they tell us where to find those resources, and if we know where they are, then we know what belongs there, then we know the identity of that land and what it should look like, and what sort of plants should be in those soil types. And Western management don't have any idea of that, and so their fire programs is like it's like giving a little baby a loaded gun, a little kid. They don't know what they're doing, and they're out there playing with something dangerous, and they're destroying so much stuff that they don't, even when they think it's a cool burn, they've still done a lot of damage to, canopies and insects.
Can you explain that term, Victor?
More importantly,
cool burn? A lot of people don't know what that actually means.
Well, the cool burn that's only 2 words, and cool burn, it really is about the right temperatures for the soils. And it's also about protecting our soils. So when we look at cool burns, it's being gentle with the country. And the philosophy around most of our burning is cool, and to protect our soils. And a lot of people say, oh, you got to put a hot fire through that, but you destroy the soil and the organic matter in those soils as well, and you destroy the canopies and you set the trees back. And so the cool burn doesn't sum up our knowledge at all. And it isn't as simple as, oh, you just got to burn cooler. That's rubbish. There's so much more that layers on top of that, and that complexity around understanding timing and the different soil types, and understanding, what country needs when it's sick as well, and how we adapt and adjust our fire applications according to the health of the land. And that's why it takes so long for people to learn this stuff, because you get to certain ecosystems that should have grass and it's just got leaf litter, or it's just bare dirt and had cattle for 100 years or more, and it's so damaged, or it's been land cleared, and all the vegetation is at the same age, and not all different ages, and there's so much, and just like in our modern society now, there's so many people with so many different sicknesses, and and that's the same with the landscape. There's so many different problems within the landscape, and it requires different applications of care and medicine, and looking after it. So you can't, it's not just get out there and just, oh, let's just burn it. Oh, it looks like this has got a lot of hazard, and this has got a lot of fuel load by the measurement of the ton and measurement of this and that. It looks like it'll be a hazard and it might burn down someone's house. So we're going to burn this. And that's not the way we do it. Nah, we look at the country and we see the country or what it needs. And when we give the country what it needs to bring back its identity and to bring back its health, then we take care of our houses, we take care of everything, we take care of all the problems. So really, the cool burn notion is not not enough. And someone goes, "Oh, it's just about cool burns." They don't know what they're talking about. There's so much, and also and how that also leads not just with the fire, but how that leads into the social side of it as well, and into education, and to other aspects of our natural resources and management forms as well. There's so much, and that's why their fire regimes for Western way is just stop life and property, full stop. And even
Victor,
now,
from some of the comments I'm getting privately, I think it's a lot worse than Westerners just saying cool burn. It's actually that they're glorifying and delighted to have a massive hot burn and just go around dropping incendiary bombs from helicopters, blowing shit up, burning stuff down. I mean, that just sounds horrific. What's that about?
I know. Well, that's the military nature,
Terrible.
and that's the paramilitary structure that is caring for land. I mean, you got a paramilitary structure looking after our land. You got language like hazard reduction. You've got operation this, like it's army. We got to go and fight the fire. We're heroes. We got to have all the equipment. We got to be dressed up in this big clown suit, with big boots and big helmet and hat and yellow suit, and walk around and look like an alien. We got our big drip torches, and we got to play with our big toys, and laugh at them. Mob don't want to see. They look at us looking after the land, and we walk around with a pair of sandals on, and we got a lighter, and that's all we got. And we don't need water. We don't need to put in fire breaks. We don't need to bulldoze the land. You don't need to do that. You should never disturb the soils. Everything they do is disturbing country, and that doesn't align with the memory of country. And when we look at the memory of our landscapes, it remembers people being a part of it, and how people have evolved with it over thousands of years and have been a part of that evolution. And that's why the diverse exists in this nation across this country. When the European came here, that diversity didn't just sit there like that and on its own, because if you leave it, they'll start taking over each other. And that's what happens with invasive natives, and wildfires would come and wipe everything out. So people have been part of that evolution, and ensuring that diversity was there, and helping those grasses and all those plants and animals evolve over thousands of years to understand fire the same way we do, and understand the importance of it, and that's why the animals react that way. And that's and that's when we look at the Western way, even the language they use, like I mentioned before, the hazard and
very interesting, Victor.
Even that language is really hurtful. Language is important, and using words on our land that is military, it's just not aligned with caring for the land. And if we, and
what
and when the country gets like people coming in dressed up like that and not being recognized, country can't recognize them. For one, the people, and then on top of that, then the big fire trucks and helicopters, and they're all coming in, and they all got lights flashing, and then they got their motors going like that, and
so I guess
and running around with drip torches, and
a lot of the work you're talking about
is shock.
To avoid having to get to those points. But we've got a good question here from Wendy, which is related. She's saying, I would appreciate your insights, Victor, into fire management in the new hotter and drier conditions that regions are experiencing in Australia and internationally, climate change. And I know a lot of other scientists have pointed out that whitefella practices of taking the water, clearing the land, drying out the forests has actually exacerbated and made country drier. So how are you fellas responding to all? Because I guess a lot of your practices aren't just what they used to be. You're actually trying to care for really damaged country. So how do you guys factor some of that in?
Yeah, that's right. The country you know, when you look at the country before the settlers came, the old people would have been using fire. It would have been easier to manage the land with the fire, for one, because when you have a healthy landscape, then it's easier to manage. You know, it's more resilient, and it's able to retain its identity itself as well. When you got old growth trees, and that's why the old people had the trees to be such old growth, because they knew that was the best way for country to care for itself. As soon as they chopped down the trees, that was the first mistake, you know. 1,000 to 500-year-olds, thousands of years just cut down after people have been had known that the trees need to be old and grow old. And when we see landscapes where trees are chopped down, they just opened it up. And the minute they chopped the trees down, then it couldn't bring the community of ground vegetation like grasses and native grasses and also other plants. And those native grasses and native forest floor plants, they are, you know, if I could tell you now, that's so important to the health of our soils and to the moisture in our content in our soils. And you know, and as soon as they chop the trees and we lose our grass, as soon as we lose our grass, the soils go hard. They become drier, less oxygen in the soils. As soon as they, then it becomes a drier country. Therefore, then the fires become more vicious. And you know, and how we apply fire to reverse that, it's all possible. We can, but it's going to take a lot of love and care. And it means walking through and burning places sometimes 2 or 3 times because it has different grasses now. And so I've got people going in now and burning, say if it's introduced grass, they'll go and burn that grass before they burn the native grass in the same one place, because the introduced grasses will cure differently to our native grasses, and we would treat them differently so that we can get those right temperatures in the soil to spark the right seed bank and the right type of grasses and vegetation. And all that knowledge all came from the old people. And knowledge and maintaining country, is like how our ancestors have managed this land continuously, looking after it, just maintaining the health of the land. Now we're in we're into the book of healing country, and that comes from the same book of maintaining country. And so by understanding how we looked after country and all that Indigenous knowledge is crucial to how we use that to heal landscapes, and how we adjust our fires by understanding its identity as much as possible, and that right way of burning that country in the first place, and understanding the native grasses that grow in all the different ecosystems and how they've evolved with fire over thousands of years to create the right type of grasses for those soils, has all been done with people. So you know, and so we have to put back the trees, and that's again going back to the old time, that what I said before, it's going to take generations. It's not about us, you know, to put back that 500-year-old tree. Like I said, it's 500 years time. You know, that's 7-8 generations, and that's why it's so important that you know, that we're on the road and we're looking at targets that aren't like, oh well, in 2030 we're going to have 0 thing in the atmosphere or carbon or well, you know. And yeah, that's important, all the fossil fuel stuff, and it's really important that we you know, that's only one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is how we look after the land and how we manage the land, and they're not talking about that.
That's beautiful.
Well, mate, I mean,
just quickly, there's 3, I just want to mention it, even if you don't have time to answer it. There's 3 questions. People are curious as to what's going on in their own areas. So I don't know if you've got anything quick to say, but someone's asked, can you mention what practices are happening in the Shire of Yarra Ranges? Someone asked about East Gippsland in Victoria, and someone else is curious about where they might find out more about the stuff going on in Newcastle.
Yeah, okay. So for the stuff in Newcastle, there's you can go into the fire sticks and you can get a hold of ask them to talk to the coordinators that are in that region. So there's a beautiful a lady there named Jess Wagner, and there's also another lady named Whitney who also works within one of my clan that I'm going to now, and there's mobs there that you can start connecting with and talking to. There's coordinators as well in southern Queensland, and there's another one in Bega and further down in Ewan country down south. They're doing koala work. and working with their mob there. But it's really just get a hold of Fire Sticks and ask what's happening in those regions, and someone will reply and be able to link you up with those coordinators or people doing that work in those regions, you know.
That's excellent.
And
We're out of
hopefully
time.
that'll be happening in everyone's region.
Oh,
Yeah.
it sounds exciting. So I've just shared the website with everyone for Fire Sticks Alliance, and I'll share it again. But I'll hand it back to Ross now, because I think we're a bit out of time.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm listening to you, and we can listen.
Next time we'll set aside a whole day for this, yarn, eh?
And I'd really love to have you back to future dreaming, and have a bit more of a yarn at some stage into the future, obviously, because your knowledge and your gift of knowledge is really welcomed, and we love that you've been able to share that with us. You know, your gift of knowledge, and also the language around giving country a voice. I think that's the critical factor here. Without giving country a voice, it's lost in translation or misinterpreted, and that, you know, bulldozers are not the answer. You know, running around in suits and clown suits and with your big fire trucks and stuff like that, you know, I get it. You know, it's absolutely hilarious, because all we're doing is chasing the impact. You know, it's the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff rather than resolving the issues at the top of it. But from the bottom of my heart, and no doubt from everybody on this webinar, mate, really appreciate your time, your love for country, love for people, love for storytelling. And is your book? When's it due? The next one?
The next adult book is hopefully next year. It'll come out next year. I got to get busy and do a lot more work, but I'm hoping it's going to be next year. But the publishers, they're saying they're already asking for it. And I was just like, but I'm not telling them when I'm ready yet, because otherwise they'll put me on a deadline, you know. So I'll wait until I give them any pages.
And I'll go back to what you originally. Yeah, well, thanks, mate. And I know you got a couple of kids' books out. But the other thing is that from the original beginning of this conversation, you talked about the lack of intelligent life. I think you really summed that up really, really well, that there's a lack of intelligent life around about our planet and how we're meant to have that relationship with our planet, rather than that destructive nature and wanting to blow up stuff all the bloody time and become so self-destructive that we don't even know that we're actually destroying ourselves as human beings. I mean, the planet will live without us, but we've got to be able to live with them inside the means of the natural world. So, brother, I want to make sure.
And being a part, you know, being a part of creation, that's so much more powerful and so much more rewarding. And I think once people get a taste of that, they can see how it's so much more greater than looking at a massive fire or looking at destruction or having a military exercise where you feel like you're a hero. It's just so much greater to be a part of the land and be a part of creation and know that you're contributing to the country.
And get rid of the mindset that you have dominion over everything. It's just a load of garbage. But, brother, I can keep going. But I know you've got to get to New York. I want you to have a really, really energetic trip, brother. I mean, everybody on there, including myself, want to come back around and have another quick yarn to you at some stage, brother. So thank you again for your time, your patience, energy, knowledge, and experience.
Thank you, Victor.
Thank you, Ross.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everyone, and we'll yarn again.
Absolutely. Thanks, brother. Good night, everybody, and have a good night.
Thank you, Ross. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.